Hello everyone, welcome to a pre-recorded video that I have for you this Friday. I am continuing with the Adorable Owl stamp set from the SALE-a-bration stamp set, and we're going to do a magic slider card with this video. So I think you're really going to like it. I'm Donna Goodwin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Brookings, South Dakota. I go by the handle Winged Horse Designs. It's a long story. Someday maybe I'll explain how I came up with that name. In the meantime, I'm going to switch cameras and we're going to go ahead and start. Me, myself, and the mouse in my pocket. I'm going to start showing you this. So here's a little bit better view of the card. So you have a blank white piece, and I wrote pull so that people would realize they need to pull. And when you pull out this blank white piece, it reveals underneath the window sheet a colored version of the same thing. So it just kind of covers it and holds it. And then on the inside, we have another cute little adorable owl. This one all dressed up with a bow tie, and he's saying, he's saying, "Hoot, hoot, you're so cute." And I just thought this was a fun card, so we're going to go ahead and work with this card. The stamp set that I chose, like I said, the stamp set that I'm using is the Adorable Owls from SALE-a-bration catalog, our current SALE-a-bration catalog. And it goes away at the end of February, the end of this month. You can get this stamp set free with a $50 order in the United States. So if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. And it just has these 3 little owls and 3 cute little sentiments. But then for the balloons, let me take this out for now. So for the balloons, I needed something because there was really nothing, and he was like kind of floating in midair with nothing going on. So I decided to bring in, from the watercolor shapes, there's all these different shapes. I brought in this little circle, and it just gives you a variation of color instead of a solid color. So we're going to use this little circle to create our balloons. Ink colors, we're going to work with Memento. We're going to work with StazOn, because on the window sheet we need something that will dry on a non-porous surface. So there's where the StazOn comes in handy. The Memento works with the alcohol markers for coloring our little owl. And I'm going to talk about how to get these other outlines here when I get to that point. And then for our balloons, I have Balmy Blue Parakeet Party, which is a nice bright green, kind of a yellowish green, and then Poppy Parade, kind of an orangey red. To create this little frame here, I used the Stitch Rectangle dies, and you just pick a piece that works with whatever size you need for your window. And I chose these 2 pieces here because I did want to create a frame just to give it a more finished look. So I cut out first from the Designer Series paper, and then I took some blue and I layered 2 together to create a frame that I could glue onto that. The measurements will be in the description, so you don't need to write those down, and they'll also be on my blog. I'm starting with the card base measures 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, scored in the middle at 4 1/4. Or I should say folded in the middle. You can obviously pre-score. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. So I'm just going to give it a good crease with my bone folder and set this piece aside. You'll need some window sheet. Well, with that same color, I chose Balmy Blue from background. Here's my little frame that I created. And here's our little pull tab. Now this is a little bit bigger than what we're going to need, but that's okay. We'll trim it down later. So just a scrap, and it measures 1/2 inch across. I have basic white for the inside, our standard 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Some Sahara sand for a little mat here just to give it more of a finished look, and that's 4 by 5 1/4. A window sheet that measures 3 3/4 by 5. A piece of white I'll bring out in a minute because I've already pre-stamped this background piece here. Measures 3 3/4 by 5 as well. And then for the mat, it's just a smidge smaller than the Sierra Sand. It's 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, and I've pre-cut that out as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to glue this piece onto the front. That's mainly so that I just don't lose this piece. And then we'll need a piece of basic white that measures 3 1/4 inches by 4 3/4 inches, and that's our slider piece. So we're just going to line this up. And I like the stitched rectangles because they have that stitching and it gives you that added texture look to it. But this just finishes that off nicely and gives us an actual frame to work with. So I'm going to set it aside. And then for our inside piece, I've already colored our little owl. I used ivory with our Stampin' Up's alcohol markers, the blends markers. I used ivory for the large part of the eyes. I used balmy blue, light and dark, for his eyes and bow tie. I used light Calypso coral for the inside of the ears. For the beak and the feet, I used dark Daffodil Delight and dark Pumpkin Pie. If you have the retired Mango Melody marker, that makes a really nice colored beak. And then for the face and his belly, I used light and dark Crumb Cake, and this is actually 2 layers. So I put down a layer, let it dry, came back, put down another layer so I wouldn't oversaturate it. You can see a little bit of oversaturation. I don't know if it'll pick it up on camera, but there's a little bit of oversaturation right here next to this part of the eye. If you get your paper too saturated with the alcohol, it will bleed across the lines. And then I came back in and I did the darker part with light and dark soft suede. So those are the colors I used. I am going to stamp the Hoot Hoot You're So Cute and Balmy Blue above him. I keep assuming that it's a little male owl because of the bow tie. I got a little aggressive here. You can see I got ink all over the edges, so I'm going to clean that up. And I'm just going to take a damp cloth. You can use a baby wipe, you can use a paper towel, any kind of a damp cloth, and just take that ink off of the outside edges. So we'll stamp Hoot Hoot You're So Cute. And there's the inside of our card. I'll set that one aside. Now I want to talk about our little owl, and then of course we have our solid piece. So we're going to bring in, the Stamparatus becomes your best friend when you're doing this. So I've actually, when you decide where to position your owl, I'll bring this back. You kind of want to bring this piece in as well so that you know that you're putting your owl inside that frame. So then I'm going to take my white and I'm going to put it in here. And with Memento, because this owl is going to be colored, I'm going to stamp our little flying owl. And I think I want the owl to be a little darker, so I'm going to stamp again. And then we can take this piece out, bring in our window sheet, put it in the same place, and this is where it's really important to use both magnets because it's going to want to stick to the window sheet and pull apart, and we want to keep the window sheet exactly where it is. First, I need to clean the Memento ink off. Get this down just a bit. I'm just going to take some paper and dry off from that wet cloth. And this time we're going to stamp with SALE-a ink. This is the smelly stuff. People either love or hate the smell of SALE-a. I'm a little indifferent. I've heard it smells like licorice. I like licorice, but it doesn't smell like licorice. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that on my window sheet. And then you want to let this just sit there and dry. Now I'm going to be really careful and not get anything on it and set him aside to dry because I have another one that I've already done. So I'm just going to set this aside, and I'm going to take this off because we're not going to need this for yet another step that we're going to do. So I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to bring out one I already have colored. And again, we're going to kind of play around with where this will be. And we're going to take our watercolor circle, and we know it's going to sit about like this. And we're going to have, say, one balloon right here. And then I'm going to clean this balloon up. I'll just go ahead and bring in a sheet underneath and dry him off. For some reason, I always refer to my stamps as he. I'm going to bring in Parakeet Party, and I'm working light to dark. Now, I stamped on a Post-it note so that I can do some masking here. And I'm going to kind of off this way, stamp a green balloon. I'm going to bring in another mask for this balloon. Put away the green. Clean my stamp. A tree would have been kind of nice. Well, sort of. I didn't have any trees that would make them look like they were far in the background and my owl in the front, so I chose balloons. And then I'm going to use Poppy Parade. And add another balloon. When I take these masks off, I have my 3 little balloons. Now we just need some strings, right? And that I can wash. I'll just go ahead and clean it up right now. So for the 3 little strings I brought in, I'm going to use it's the actual watercolor marker because this is cardstock, so it'll take. I'm going to use the pen side of this. And I'm just going to draw some little strings down that he's hanging on to. Then I'm going to come from there. Draw another string, and then the red one. We're just kind of guessing here. And yet another string. So we have some strings there. But we need some balloons on our window sheet so that when our pole is down, we have balloons there as well. So I'm going to put this away. I'm going to bring the Stamp-a-Ratus back, and I'm going to lay this in as a Stamp-a-Ratus, and I'm going to lay my window sheet directly on top of it. So you see that our owls are matched up, and I'm going to hold this down with magnets. And then I'm going to come in. Now you might be tempted to think, okay, non-porous, I can use a permanent marker. So this thin little line, let's do it this way. This thin little line is a Sharpie. And this little bit thicker line is the dark basic black Stampin' Blends alcohol marker. Now these were scribbled last night. There's your Sharpie. I shouldn't have gotten it onto here, but we'll live with it. This one, on the other hand, let's flip it over so we have the other side. This one, once it has time to dry, will stay in place. So I'm going to bring in the dark. So you kind of want to use an alcohol marker. This is the dark basic black, and I'm going to use the pen side again. And I have my plastic over the top of my white. Excuse me. And I'm going to hand draw my outline. So I'm just going to trace. If you get a little more perpendicular, you get a thinner line. So I've traced my strings. I'm going to spin it to make it easy. Now I just need to trace my circles. And I am going to freehand trace. You could bring the mats back in and trace around the mats if you want. And there we have, on our window sheet, we have that traced over. This one needs to go up and touch. There we go. Now you need to be really careful not to touch this, and I'll show you why. I touched it before it was dry, so you can see that it's a little bit smudged here. So I'm going to very carefully stay away from those. We'll just use this one. Stay away from the pieces that I drew. My little owl is dry, but I need to stay away from those. So I'm just going to set this aside, out of the way, and we'll work on assembly of what we can until we get to that point. And then I'll be super careful not to touch my piece again. But if you can just do that part and let it sit for several hours or even overnight, that significantly helps. So we're going to mount this piece. We're going to mount our Sierra Sand directly onto the front of our card. And I would love it if you would follow me on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. So if you'd like to follow me on Facebook, there's my Facebook page. Please do like, comment, and share. or maybe you prefer YouTube. And then my website, I didn't create a banner for it, but basically my website is wingedhorsedesigns.com. So there'll be a written blog over there, or there is a written blog over there for this card and other cards. And then if you don't already have a demonstrator and would like to order any of these products, there's my February host code. Okay, so now I need that piece. So I'm going to have to be super, well, no, I don't. Now we can put this piece down. Okay. Now we're getting into where we need to be, and we'll put the inside in. That's something else I can do before we get to the window sheet. And since I am going to record all of this in one fell swoop, we will, we got one more thing we can do. I forgot to cut the piece for our pull mechanism. So we'll bring in the paper trimmer and do that. We're going to make a piece that's 3 3/4 inches. This one already is by 4 1/4. 4 1/4? 4 1/4. 4 1/4, 4 1/2, I'm not sure. Actually, I take that back. We're going to make this 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. No, I take that back again. So ignore all of these. We want it to be 3 1/4 inches. By 4 1/2. And I'm going to bring in the Label Me Fancy Punch. It has this tag, but it has this ribbon slide here, and it has a little hole for twine. And I'm just going to kind of line it up in the middle. And I'm going to slide it back so that it's not in this part. And punch in that ribbon slide, but instead of ribbon, we're going to use our little tab that's a 1/2 inch. This one's probably about 2 1/2 or 3 inches, and we're just going to slide this through. And we'll glue this together. And I'm going to wait to write the word pull and to trim it until I have the whole card together. Now we're hitting the part where we have to be careful. So to make window sheets stick to this piece, we need to use something super strong. So I'm going to bring in tearing tape. And we only want it on we want it on all 4 sides. Let's close to the edge as we can. And you can tear it or you can cut it. I like cutting. I just can't seem to get enough of these little owls. I don't know what I'm going to do when February is over and the owls retire, other than keeping it for my personal stamping and not so much for my business stamping. So if you're on Facebook, I would really like it if you'd like, comment, and share. And if you're on YouTube, I would like it if you would give me a thumbs up. You could give me a thumbs down too, but I like thumbs up better. And comment and subscribe would be wonderful. You can also share from there as well. I'm just going to burnish these down really good so that it's easier to get this backing off. And I'm going to just start the peeling process from 2 corners. So this is the hardest part. Is getting this backing started. So I'm just going to take and give it a little flag on either end. You've seen me do this before. You've seen other demonstrators do this. It just makes it easier when you're lining the piece up to have these little flags at opposite corners rather than peel it all the way off. Okay, we're going to line this up. Once we get lined up, we will press on those 2 corners. And now we can take this and we can just peel it off without this window sheet sliding around again. As long as I don't touch this side, I'm good. So we have our window sheet ready to go on, but we don't want to glue it down flat because we need to be able to put our slider in and out. So I'm going to use some foam adhesive strips. Now my foam adhesive strips are not from Stampin' Up! I love Stampin' Up! Products, but I do like these foam adhesive strips from scrapbook.com a little bit better because they're thinner. They're not as thick, and I just like that better when I'm mailing my card. So we only want to put this on 3 sides because we need an opening at the top. And I did put it in pretty tight to the edge. I'm a little bit far off the edge there, but that's okay. And we'll leave this end open. I'm going to do kind of the same thing. You notice I'm trying to get my fingers only over here so that I don't smear this one the way I did the other one. And I'm going to bring these two little flags. I'm going to create two flags here. And we're going to line this up based on the Sierra Sand side. And it's just barely a marker, or just barely a piece. It's pretty tight. It's a real thin mat. Once I have those ends anchored down, I can slowly pull these backers off. Now, I didn't get this lined up very good. Our owl's got kind of a halo effect going on. But I should have paid a little closer attention to my owl and got him lined up. And I can fix that later, but it requires a very large heating tool. So then when you slide this piece in, we're going to slide it down to where we know it slides all the way down. We're going to trim this off. And then we're going to write the word pull on here so that they know they need to pull this off. Or I should say pull this out. Now I chose not to put any embellishments on it because I really wanted it to at first be, oh, that's kind of a plain card. And then when you pull, realize, oh, look at that. It's not so plain after all. So it's really not that difficult a card to do. You notice I'm still staying away from these pieces here until this has a chance to dry. So I'm trying really careful not to touch that part. So I hope you kind of liked this magic slider card. There's so many different images you can put behind it, and it's so cute to make. So I hope you'll try to make it yourself. And I hope you'll come back and join me again sometime for something else. It may be a fun fold like this one. I don't know if this is fun fold or technique. It's one of the two. Or sometimes I just do simple and easy cards. So I hope you will come back and join me. And I hope you'll click on the little subscribe button and also click on the notify me so that whenever I go live or upload something in YouTube, you'll know. Facebook works a little bit differently, but there is notifications there as well. Not so much when I upload a straight video like this one as there is when I go live. So have a wonderful week, everyone, and I'll see you next week. Happy trails.